this video will be about the major difficulties that you might find drawing a face. And it's really about what to do when you're facing the blank canvas, what to do when you're um, looking at that blank canvas and you don't know what is up, what you want to draw, but you don't know how to approach it. And some of you like to approach it with crutches. They like to approach it and really with a lot of caution. And that caution limits your drawing in many ways. One of the ways that you approach it with caution is lines and symbolic representation of features of the face. For instance, if I was trying to draw a face and I approach the image in such a way, let me get my brush. Well, I need to really careful. I want to make sure that I end up drawing something. So what I do is, instead of experimenting with something new or figuring out how to keep my brush larger or something like that, all the stuff that I hear from teachers or whatever, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. I would just go in and just start sketching the eye, really sketching the crap out of that eye, and figure things out like this. This is a symbolic representation of an eye. It's not how an eye works. It has nothing to do with function. If you guys look at my videos on how to paint eyes, you know what I mean by function. It has nothing to do with the real anatomy of the eye. This is more representative of the function of the eye. The eyeball is there. The eyelids are representing themselves as eyelids instead of just two slits into the abyss. What you guys need to start doing is stop approaching your drawing with caution. Approach it with not just courage, but a sense of control. And the way you can't just act like you have control of your drawing. You have to have a good background, a good stable understanding of the fundamentals to really feel in control. Every artist, even those pros up there, they feel a great deal of anxiety in the beginning of the drawing. But that's okay. That's because they're still trying to grasp the general inspiration that led them to the drawing. It's because they're still trying to that first 30 minutes or however long the painting takes, that first bit where you're getting the colors and getting all of that stuff, it's a rush and it can be intimidating, and that's normal. What isn't normal is that you're scared throughout the entire process, and you're scared throughout the sketching and the shading and the form development and details. You're constantly in fear of losing what you have. You're constantly in fear of taking the next step, and you're always erasing, always erasing. If you have these symptoms, you suffer from art fear. And what you need to start doing is take a step back, relax, and think about how how far do you want to go with art, and how seriously are you taking it? If you're taking it seriously, then you want to improve. And if you want to improve, you'll take the next step and you'll start learning your fundamentals. Your fundamentals are the most important tools in your belt. You can't overlook them. You can't use the style excuse. You can't work your way with caution throughout your entire life. You can't settle for anime. You have to start thinking about form, about the fundamentals and how they create form. In essence, what you are doing is you are recreating the form that happens in real life on a 2D surface. You're creating a 3D subject on a 2D surface. You're limited by one dimension. And the issue with that is you have to know how to include the extra dimension, and you have to think about the light source. So I know this is all big and crazy, and I'm going to leave that for later, all that light source and shading stuff for later. Right now, I just want to guide you. Right now, open up a drawing and look at it. Look at the blank canvas. Open up a canvas and look at the blank canvas. It's daunting to you. You don't know what to do with it. Most of you don't even open up a gray image. Most of you open up a white, a freaking blinding, whatever this is. I don't know. I can refuse to call it. I refuse to acknowledge it as a possible background for anything. It's horrible. And what you need to start doing is you need to start using gray backgrounds. That's something I really want you guys to focus on. Get rid of that white. Just because your sketchbooks are white doesn't mean that on the computer where there's light coming from the monitor and the white is way wider than any sketchbook paper you've ever drawn on. It'll blind you. So what you need to do is, gray it out, and that's it. All right. So we're staring at our gray canvas and we don't know what to do. We want to draw a face though. That's something that we know we want to do. And we've never drawn a face. Some of you have never drawn a face, and you want to draw one today along with this video, or you're trying to teach yourselves by watching this video. So, what what I want to do with you today, what I want to introduce to you, is the mapping system. Mapping out a face. Now, that can be self-explanatory just by using the word mapping, but there's a whole deal of understanding behind it, and I want you to open up your ears and open your mind a second, and follow me into this world of art maps. I mean, face maps. So, when a geologist maps out an area, if that's what they're called, geologists, I don't know, topographers, I'm not sure. They map out an area of land. They do it through an altitude map first. Something that works like this, where it's like a chart. It's a chart first, and then they have these numbers here in the y-axis, and numbers here in the x-axis. And what they do is they map out the distance and like some sort of other reference point between this reference point and this reference point on the Earth, and they're mapping out a mountain range. And here is the highest altitude, let's say 1,000 kilometers high in the air. That's possible. And and the highest mountain we know goes that high. So let's say it goes that high, and it is, let's say, 50 kilometers or whatever. I know this is horrible referencing and not real. 50 kilometers wide. So we know that it reaches its peak within this 50-kilometer radius. We have other, distance. We have other mountains as well alongside it. So when we get the highest point, what we do is we reference everything down by knowing what the highest point is. And so there's another mountain here, Billy, and another mountain beside Billy, Bob, you, and then another mountain beside Titanus is Steve. Yes, Bob and Steve are recurring names in my teaching process. And other small tiny mountains. And we know, because we know what the highest point is, we can reference these. And this is pretty much what they do. And this is a cross section of how the mountains look. When you look at the mountains, I'm sure there's other mountains in front of them, or they're much wider than this, or you don't see this exact perfect cutout outlining of what the mountains look like. This is a cross section. A cross section is when it's like a slice. If you have an orange, you have a slice of the orange, and then you have the rest of the orange here. You actually cut out a specific slice. This is a cross section of the mountain silhouette. Excuse me. I kind of have a cold or something. I'm not sure. I'm always in a state of cold. Okay, I'm sorry. So, this is what I want you to start thinking about. Drawing a face isn't just about staring at the face, with it staring back at you. You have to start thinking about the rotation. You have to start thinking about the highs and lows, the valleys and mountains of a face, and thinking about this cross section, this altitude map of the face, will help you take on any kind of face you will draw for the rest of your life, because it will embed in your mind a certain way of understanding the face that can't be changed by the light source, can't be changed by the kind of colors you use. That's all aside. That's all to the side. A face is still a face even when the lights are off. If you put your hand on a face in the dark, the way a blind person would, you still feel the highs and lows of the face. The face is still there. Which means, this is profound, it means that the face is concrete. The face is built with structures that can't be molded or changed very easily, unless you have a shotgun. So what you gotta do is, next time you draw a face, and you're looking at the blank canvas, think about these highs and lows. Where are the highs? What's the highest point of the face? Put your hands on your face right now and determine where the high point is. Just brush your hands gently off your face. What touches your hands the most? It's your nose. Your nose is the highest point on your face. what I do when I struggle with a drawing, especially when when I don't want to sketch it at first, or use a crutch or something, and I want to just use large brush strokes, and I figured out my colors, or I'm painting in grayscale, it doesn't matter. I used one large, really light, not really light, but the light source brush stroke for the nose. So I know where the nose is. Usually I do two large brush strokes for the eye sockets. So it would be something like this. And then the nose shadow. Sometimes I do the opposite. Instead of starting with the nose, starting with the eye sockets, I go in with the nose light first, other high points. And by determining these high points, by placing some light on them, I find the dark points as well emerging in between. So painting one area means the other area will also be revealed. This is not going to happen for you if you start with a basic, with a base tone underneath all of these lines. You're not going to know where these dark points are later on. You're just going to be worried about your lines and preserving your lines. If this is a method you use a lot, because you're scanning your image and you're separating the whites from the lines and you want to start painting the lines, what you have to do is sacrifice your lines and start thinking about simply the lines being guiding points, and you still have to respect high points and low points of the face. You still have to recreate them. You still have to choose which of these features is the highest mountain of the altitude map and which is the lowest area. Okay? So let's draw a face together. I'm sorry if the face isn't perfect. I've been avoiding drawing faces along with you guys because like 4 years from now I'm probably going to improve, and I'm probably going to look back at the video like I did with the how to paint skin video, and I'm going to be like, oh my god, that looks like crap. Why did I draw that in front of people? But I'm going to do it for you guys because I love you guys. Okay, so now that you're thinking about the mapping, you're thinking about the high points and low points of the face. Now it's time to jump on it, to utilize, to apply this technique. So let's get a nice shade. I don't know which brush to use. This is a good one. I guess this is a good one. And we're going to start. For now, because it is very similar to the other way I've taught how to draw a face, let's start with the dark points. The dark points of the face are are just as important as the light spots. The valleys are just as important as the high points, as the mountain peaks. And so determining where these valleys are maps out where the mountain is. And what you'll need to do to determine how high the mountain is just to place more light on it, because that's highest exposure, point of exposure to the sunlight. Now, how do we see mountains if it's not for the sun? How do we see a face if not for the light that's surrounding it, revealing this form to us by casting shadows and revealing details and other forms and structures and colors? Light is responsible for shadows and cast shadows, and responsible for color. So how could you possibly ignore determining a light source in your portrait drawing? So we have to determine the light source. So let's choose a light color, a light value that we won't go higher than. A light value that we will not, that cannot, because it is the light source value, it can't, no other color, no other object, unless it is the light source or another light source, can reach this high value level. If your face has this much light in it, right here, you're doing it wrong. Unless the face is literally glass. Unless it is super shiny, which a face isn't. It's very matte. It's only light in certain areas that can be wet or moist, and not even that light. It was just little dots and highlights and accents. Okay, so we found our light source. So let's start casting some shadows. Right, we're not shading. Remember this. Right now we're not really shading. Right now we're mapping. We're finding surfaces and faces and surface areas, faces of space on the face. Let's say it like that. This is not shading. I don't want to call it shading because this can be misunderstood as, we're already working on the form. We're not working on the form just yet. No form is being revealed right now. It hasn't yet been revealed. Okay, and I want the light source to be thrown from the top down. This is a very typical, very basic light source for portrait art. Okay, so the light source is coming from the top. Now that we have our basic shadows, we have some inclination of where these valleys are in between these mountains. Let's think about which of the mountains is highest. And so we know that it's the nose. And we know that if the nose is the highest point and it is the most exposed to the light, it will be the lightest point on the face. No other point on the face will be lighter unless it is wet, which in this case won't be. So let's just decide that there won't be any major moisture on this face. It's very matte, it's very basic. So let's choose our light source color. So I drop tooled one of the light source colors that I have. One is intense, one is not so intense. One is sort of the area in the light bulb, and one is the emanating light outside. So remember, the light is top down, so all the shadows are pointing down. Excuse me. And we're choosing this area here to be the lightest point on the face. I want you all to do this with me. Okay. Sorry, I just had to cough. So now that we've chosen this as the lightest point, let us think about it in numbers. Let's say that the nose is 5 kilometers in the air. That's a big nose. And let's say that the eye sockets are, the brow bones here. Let me write these down for you. So 5 kilometers for the face, for the nose, sorry. Let's say this is a 5, this is a 3. Let's say these are 2s or 1s. The chin is a 1.5, a 1 or a 0.5. The lip could be a 1. And let's think about it as a map, the way a topographist or topographer, and we're mapping out the face. How you've seen this, what I'm going to do, you've seen it before, and I hope that you understand what I'm saying as soon as I draw it. This is basically what it's always been when you draw a face from the side. It's a literal cross-section of the highs and points of the face. Okay, so this nose is the 5 kilometer point. I know it's a bit off, it's not perfect, but for the sake of the lesson, I can't sit there and work on details for too long. Okay. But this is the altitude map right here. These are the high points, and these are the low points right here. And what we need to start thinking about is how to represent this increasing altitude through value. Because we're not using lines. This is lines. I'm using lines, which is might confuse you a little bit. These are lines right here. This is just a pointer. Lines are pointers. Lines are arrows. They're not the thing themselves. Lines point to the form. They are not the form. Form is formed through edges. And edges themselves are the illusion. Form is an actual mass, an actual structure that has high points and low points in it that can be revealed through the light. The difference between you right now, whatever level you're on, beginner, intermediate, advanced, the difference between you and the person you admire, the artist that you want to be like, is their understanding of form is by immeasurably higher than yours, let's say. And that's the difference. The difference isn't their understanding of color. That's part of the difference, but it isn't the major difference. The difference isn't their brush strokes and how awesome their brush strokes are compared to yours. Those are really easy to simulate. The difference isn't in inspiration or any other accessory of knowledge. It's in the real knowledge. The difference between you and the artist that you want to be is knowledge. And I know that's no shit, but what specific knowledge is it, Istebrak? It's the form, understanding of form. Your ability to project the form in your mind and rotate it will exponentially improve your artwork. What I like to say all the time is, if you were a 3D modeler, you'd know what I'm talking about. Which means basically a 3D modeler works not just in the X and Y axis of a drawing, basically the lines, which is what I did here and what I did over here. It's in the Z axis as well. And if you worked with calculus ever, you know that the Z axis is part of the whole math thing. Don't ask me about math, but it's math on the 3D level. And that's what you're doing right now as the artist when you're thinking about form. You've escaped 2 dimensions and you've entered the 3 dimensions. It is hard. Why? Because you're only limited to do that 2 dimensions in the paper. You've only ever drawn with pencil and paper to begin with, back in grade school or whenever you started drawing. It has always been 2 dimensions for you, and it's proper. That's normal. But when you want to be a crazy person and you want to be a good artist, really good artist, you have to start pushing the limit. Pushing the limit means introducing that 3rd dimension, which is the form. So now that we've talked about that, let's determine the form. Let me just keep this by right here. Okay, let's keep thinking about this. This is the highest point of exposure. The light is shining in this way, exposing this area of the nose, this forehead area. This girl's nose is particularly large, so it's really covering up everything. The shadow of her nose would be all the way over here. So let me redo her nose a second. Let me give her a nose job. Okay, sorry about the bad sketch. This is the light, top down. Maybe actually a little bit to the side, sort of a 45-degree angle, pointing that way. Okay, so this nose will cast a shadow because this entire area is exposed. So let me draw that out for you here. This mapping that you do, that you might want to do in your drawing, will pay off. It will pay off so hard. And and you will thank yourself for mapping it out the way I just mapped it out here on the side view of the face. If you are planning on drawing a face, even just as a template, something to keep open so you can keep looking at it, it will really help you. It'll remind you of the form. It will remind you of the fundamentals of form so that you don't ignore them next time you want to throw a brush stroke somewhere. It isn't random stroking of the brush, by the way, that you see on those time-lapse videos of pros painting a face. It isn't random. They know what they're doing. They know where the light is supposed to be, so they throw general strokes here and here and here just to have a good hold and get over that initial anxiety. So the light is shining here, just like it would be here. And these areas of light, these areas are all exposed to the light. The inner part here, this whole part here, this part of the forehead. And if we keep painting this and sketching it, this will turn into another drawing. So now that we're thinking about all of that, I know this is a really slow process. I'm really breaking it down for you guys, but bear with me. So we know the forehead and the nose. Nose more than the forehead because the nose always does have a little bit of moisture. Not a lot of moisture that it's shiny, but not like super shiny. It is shiny, but not super shiny, which it is a big difference. It's the difference between pure white and white gray. So let's place some of that light on the forehead. Remember though, all the other shadowed areas. Don't just go throwing light everywhere. It's all the shadowed areas. And starting with a gray tone means you're starting with your base tone. The base tone is always a middle tone. The base tone of the skin, if you choose like a skin color, you have to make sure it's in this range. In this range over here. So this here is a base tone. This is a good base tone for the skin. Because it's around the same area. The same sort of, do you see? When I desaturate, it's almost the same kind of gray. It's a little bit lighter. Tiny bit, almost not noticeable. This is why I ask you to keep your backgrounds gray. Because it helps you stay in that safe zone. If it's way too light, what value are you going to get in skin tone if you're choosing skin tone up here? You're not going to get anywhere. This is a light tone of skin. And if I desaturate, see the major difference between the base tone of the gray that I tell you to keep and the one you might be trying out. So let's throw that on the forehead. Okay, so let's refer back to our map. What is our map telling us? Where are these dark points? So there's a dark point in the eyes here because this whole area is a response of light. So let me tell you another rule. Wherever there is major light exposure, there is a shadow to follow 100% of the time. Unless it is the light source. Light source can't cast a shadow on itself because it is the light source. There is no shadow in the light. There's too much light for a shadow to be entertained because the matter is superimposed by the light. Therefore, nothing is dense enough around the light source to cause that light to change and cast a shadow. Unless you have, like, you've seen them, light sources that have little cutouts on them that, throw out a butterfly or something. That's the only real way to interrupt the light source to get, there's really no way around it. Everything that has light cast upon it will cast a shadow. Why Istebrak? Because it is a piece of matter. It is opaque. It is complete. It is dense. Therefore, the light is like trying to get around it to overcome it, and it doesn't know where to go. So what happens is that there's a whole area, depending on the width of the form, that casts the shadow. It says, no, light, you cannot pass. And it casts the shadow, and the shadow is proof that the rock has won over the light. Okay? Think about it in that way. So this area here, this is a lot of light, and the forehead is like, you shall not pass. And what happens? The shadow is cast over here. Fuck. Okay. Same thing with the nose. The nose says, yes, you've taken over some of me, but you shall not pass, you shall not take my friends. And it casts a shadow, and this whole part of the nose here is not lit. It casts a shadow. Same here, same with the top lip, and same with the bottom area of the face. This whole bottom area here. So this is our map. Let's go back here. Okay, so we're seeing that the cheekbones also have some light. Not as intense though. I know this intensity levels aren't really obvious. Okay, let's say they're obvious now. Cheekbone, and then the milk mustache. I usually talk about this a lot because this area here beside the nose, a small area, gets some light on it, on either side of the nose, because the nose isn't there anymore. The nose stops in between your eye lines, and then you have cheekbone, and you have cheek. And this is part of the cheek over here. Okay? Okay. So now let's think about the lips, bottom lip, and then the chin. Now it's starting to look a little bit like an alien. That's okay, because we're not even there yet. This is just a pointer to where all the shadows will be. We're not even shading at this point. We're just mapping, and that's it. The mapping stage is the most important stage. Excuse me. And it is the most stressful stage, because at this point, especially if you're painting in color, you not only have to map, but you have to choose the colors you want to play around with. You want to play with like light blues and greens and pinks and yellows, and you have to determine the form. What kind of face is it? By the way, there will be a Q&A session at the end. It isn't live, by the way. This isn't a live stream. This is recording privately. But I did have some of my students ask me questions, and these questions will be answered at the end. So if one of the questions was how to make a face look unique, it is at this level. It is at this point, this mapping point, because here you determine how wide the mountain is, how high the mountain is, and the difference between one face and the other is the measurements, the actual scaling in between the features. That's what makes faces different, whether they're symmetrical, asymmetrical, etc. But this is the point where you choose what kind of face you're drawing, which is why it can be a bit difficult. And this is why I've recommended numerous times, like it's countless, please paint in grayscale in the beginning. The reason why is because if you tackle color and scale all at the same time, you will slow down your learning process. The key to learning is to break down the learning process, to break it down into parts, to stages. You want to take apart a fridge. You have to take the fridge apart in stages and areas. You want to put it back together again, you have to put it back together again in stages and understanding. So break it down into parts. Don't take it all at the same time and spread all your parts in front of you on the carpet so you can get overwhelmed and kill yourself. Take it step by step. Break down the radiator or something. Break down the door. Break down all at the same time and put them back together again. And then now you understand how the door of the fridge works. Same thing with the face. Break it down into parts. Don't take color on just yet. You don't have to worry about that just yet. Okay? Relax. This can be a really stressful time in a painting, especially if you're a beginner. And you can speed this up by years and years of practice and lost time simply by breaking it down. Alright? So now that we have all these basic maps set out, we have a really basic face structure going, a really longish face. Let's get to the fun part. Let's get to the details. But we can't get to the details unless we have this map. Remember that. You can't go straight in with the lines and start detailing stuff. It will look like a face, but it will be flat. It will not be a complete face. It will be a drawing. It will not be... Did I just say drawing? It will be a drawing. It will not be a painting. You want painting. You're staring at Waterhouse's drawings and you say, fuck this guy, I want to be just like him. Well, it's not lines, is it? It's paint. It's form. It's shadow. And that's what you want to be like. So follow me. Not that I know how to do like... not that I know how to be like Waterhouse, I wish, but just as a point of reference. Alright. Okay. Now, let's think about smaller areas here of detail, of light and shadow. So we know the eyebrows are here. But I'm just going to start doing this the way I would paint a face. The way I would start painting one. What I would do. So this is what I would do. General large brush strokes to show me where the shadows are, where everything is on this face. And this happens, these rules, these maps, these altitude maps are consistent. They are concrete. They do not change whether the light source changes or not. It doesn't matter. They don't change. Why don't they change? Because they're structures. They're concrete. They're not actually made of concrete, but they're stiff. It's not jelly. Skeletal structure and muscles and form. Okay. Determining the nose, where the nose is, what kind of nose I want to make. Basically right now I'm sculpting. Just thinking like a sculptor would. The sculptor has the form already, has the gray slab already, and what they're doing is just carving. What I want to do right now is choose where I want high points, gradients, stuff like that. Keeping my brush generally very, very large. And everything else after this, I've already taught you guys. Absolutely everything else. How to paint the nose in detail, how to paint the lips in detail, how to go around organizing the face, so light spots and dark spots of the face, really dark areas that you can't go darker than. So we've determined how light we're going. Let's determine how dark we're going. Let's make a map of, not a map, a border. This border determines how high you can go, and after this point you can't. You just simply can't. You have to take a step down in value and reorganize the values of the face that you're drawing. Let's choose how dark we go now. Usually I start with the lips. Sometimes you can basically there's 6 dark spots. For some of you who don't know. I feel like I'm repeating myself horribly by showing you guys, because absolutely every single video I talk about it. The 6 dark spots of the face are the 2 eyeballs and the irises, the 2 nostrils, oops, and the 2 lip corners. Yes, it looks again like an alien, but you'll see how it all falls together eventually. You can sacrifice one of these, only one set. You can choose to not make this dark. You can choose not to make this dark. You can choose not to make this dark. But you need at least 2. The reason why is because that's really what a face is, these dark spots. They're more, they make more form than the light spots do, believe it. Because they show the real depth of the drawing, where the holes are. Now, a face doesn't necessarily have to have large cheekbones, so it might not have a light spot on the cheekbones. The face's forehead might not be that big, so it might not capture that light, but you will always have lip corners, and you will always have eyes, and you will always have nostrils in every kind of face, unless, again, you've been shot by a shotgun on the face. God help you if you have. Alright, so notice how I'm already introducing the parameters of the face here by not painting over into the borders of the face. Why? Because I don't need lines later. I'm just going to use a shade later on to show me where the edge of the face is. I don't need lines right now. Okay, so don't worry if you don't have the border of the head already. It's okay. Relax. It's going to be okay. Alright? So now I'm just going to... so I found out how dark I want to go with one of these. Let me just figure out what kind of makeup I want to do. At this stage, this is all the funness. I'm going to remove the eye darks because I didn't like those. Reposition them later. And another thing that I need to tell you guys is the eyeballs, please don't make them this light for the love of God and all things good in the world. They're never going to be that light. They're already in the shadowed area, so they're never going to move outside of a certain degree of light. So you're already breaking the rules if you're making them lighter. Okay, so I'm getting the nose shadow structured out, and now I'm just getting the basic lips. I'm not using a reference, so this is going to look a bit generic. Intensely generic, actually. The very basic, big lips, you know, etc., etc. The whole ordeal. Pretty face, boring. Pretty face. Just for the sake of the class. Okay. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to choose a basic point of view, basic brush stroke or two to show where the eyes are. Determine the eyebrows and where their location is. Remember, the eyebrows are a shade before they are hair when you want to sketch it, like in the order of drawing. Because hairs cast a shadow. You have to make sure there's a halo of darkness around the eyebrows. Like this. Okay. Thinking about this. Keep remembering this. Where the shadows are in this area here. So there's one beneath the lips. Here. Okay, she looks a bit stern. There's one on the cheekbones, and then there's the milk mustache. And if you've gotten this stage checked, you're good. Detailing and stuff like that, so I don't keep the video running too long, is all in the other videos. Detailing the eyes, how to detail the eyes, lashes, how to draw the eyes, how to lighten the eyes. That's all in the other videos. Just so I don't seem redundant. But if you've gotten this stage set and you've gotten all these light spots in the right spot, you're good to go. You've pretty much done the hardest part of how to draw a face. You've mapped, you've thought about form without actively trying to create form. What you've done is you've taken it, you've broken it down into steps. You've broken the form thing down into steps. When someone says you need more form in your drawing, that really doesn't help you. If someone's giving you a critique and it says you need more form, what they're trying to say however badly, is you need to show more structures standing in the way of the light, interrupting the light, and showing how dense these structures are, how transparent they might be, what shape they are, and what their size is. Not only that, all of this was revealed by casting a shadow. When a shadow is cast, it does more work than any light source can, or any lighting or shading can, to create form. When you cast a shadow in front of another object, it shows the form right away. It shows that, oh my God, this shadow is casting a shadow on this other shadow. I mean, this object is casting a shadow on this other object, sorry. And what we're seeing here is levels of depth. We're seeing atmosphere. All of a sudden there's space in between this object and that object. So think about two balls standing in front of each, I'm going to say three balls standing in front of each other. And let's cast a shadow of this ball in front of this one, and this one in front of that one. Look at the space now in between them. I know this is a really bad job, but look at the space now in between these balls. Look at what's happening here. And not only that, let's cast their shadows down. There's depth now in between. I know this is a really bad job, but there's depth. There's space. There's actual space. You can walk in between here. There's one, there's one, and there's the other, and you can stand in between either one. Okay? This is what I mean. This is what everyone means when they say form. It's the three-dimensional quality of the subject. It is the density, the volume, the heaviness, the transparency, all of that is what form is. It's physics. Form is physics. And as long as in art we're trying to duplicate the miracles of physics onto a 2D subject, art is essentially form. Art equals form. What is art in the technical and practice aspect? It's form, understanding how form works. Form is color as well. What kind of colors can be entertained in a certain kind of fabric, a certain kind of material, skin, blood, all of that stuff is form. Form isn't just the density, it's also the color. Remember that. But right now, forget about color for a second and just focus on the basics. I hope this video helped. I'm going to try to cover the Q&A now and think about how maybe you could have worked. Never mind. I'm going to cover some basic. Okay. So some basic summarizing facts, summarizing points of the lesson. So let's think about them together. Mapping is important in the first stages. Why? Because it's not only the x, y, but it considers the z-axis. Because it tells you where these high points and low points are, and if you duplicate them back onto a face, you'll be introducing the z-axis, because now you're thinking about the protrusion. Part of the nose is going at you, the viewer, outside of the painting. The nose is sticking outside of the painting. Another important fact we learned today is the altitude map, the profile view. Thinking about it in actual numbers, finding a high point and referencing it back to the low point. So mapping basically means finding your high point and finding high point and finding low point as well. Another thing is, after you've determined this solid structure, this concrete form, it doesn't change. Form doesn't change. What changes is the light source. Light source changes in many ways. Changes in direction and intensity and color. Everything else is concrete. Everything else doesn't change. Another important fact that we learned today is outlining is a crutch. It may be helpful. Crutches are helpful. Lining is a crutch. You depend on it. It encourages dependency. You don't want that. You want to be courageous. You want to jump in. You want to learn something new every time you paint. You don't want to be, you want to be on the cutting edge of your knowledge and it's what it knows. You want to be at the edge of it. You want to constantly be building and adding more blocks and extending the edge of your knowledge and extending the area of knowledge in your mind about art. You don't want to always be swimming around in whatever you did accomplish and never really pushing your boundaries. You want to think about, instead of lines as solid points of reference, you want to think about them as guidelines. Sculptors do, when they have a slab, they do sort of sketch out some areas that they want to start carving around. But that's it. The line is obsolete. The line doesn't stay after the sculptor is done. The line disappears. It's gone. What you're left with is the sculpture. You don't see lines there anymore. The lines were just pointers. The lines are an illusion. They're guidelines, but they're an illusion. By the way, this video isn't for line artists. I mean, this video is like against line artists, so this isn't for you guys. This is for you if you want to start painting more three-dimensionally. You want to start painting more realistically. But it isn't for anime or manga or all of that stuff. I don't really teach that stuff because I don't know that stuff. Mark Curley, though, he's awesome at that. You guys can go check out his channel. Not that he needs my advertisement. Lines are an illusion. They only point to the subject that you're carving. So they're an illusion. What they do guide you to is form and sculpting. I know I'm writing it, and it's really redundant that I write it in front of you instead of typing it out, but I really want to be involved with you guys right now, okay? I want you guys to write it with me. These are notes. You're taking it down. You're actively learning. I'm just looking at my notes a second. Yeah, so all your brushstrokes should be a major part of your, like, what your chisel is doing. Your brushstroke should be like a chisel, what a chisel tool does for a sculptor. You're sculpting with your brushstroke. And what you're sculpting is the form. So this picture here that I just dropped in is a face plane bust. Basically what it does, artists can buy this, that mannequin that you can also buy for body, which I don't recommend you buy, but it's basically the same thing. It's help for artists, sort of like a tool to refer to, like an anatomy sculptor or something. And basically this is very similar to what I'm talking about. These lines that you're stroking here, very, very quick, not that quick, but very quick points that a sculpture determines early on in the sculpting process. The same thing with art. The same exact thing. Your light points, your dark points, making sure the cheekbones are not you're not using any lines. The cheekbones reveal themselves eventually, along with the side of the head and the edges of the head. The dark points of the eye socket, the dark point of the nose, the lip, the bottom of the lip, the bottom lip as well is lighter. This is all what I'm talking about. This is what we looked at. Well, the light source here is from the side. It's not very similar. But this is what we looked at when we looked at the altitude points as well. Look at these high points here. They're responding to the light source. In this case, though, the light source is in this direction, and this light source is in this direction, and this light source is in this direction. So it's not, they should have made it, well, for the sake of the lesson anyways, I should bring you a sculpture that has the same light source, but you're seeing it from different angles. So don't be confused when you remember that this nose is still the same nose on every single one of these busts. The only thing that changed is what? The light source. And it's showing you different, how shadows can be cast differently. That's it. Remember that, guys. The face itself doesn't change, along with the brushstroke system for mapping. And that's really it. that's really all I wanted to cover. I'm going to jump on to the questions now. And I hope these questions help others as well, not just the artists that ask them. So let's get on to it. Okay, where does one start on the face, the eyes or the silhouette? I'm not sure what you mean by silhouette, but basically it doesn't really matter where you start. It's really about your own comfort. But as if you don't know your comfort, you haven't painted enough to determine what your comfort point is anyway, you should start with the eye socket. The reason why I always start with the eye socket or the nose light, is because I want to know where the major T of the face is. Once I find that T, I have the symmetry, which is what a face is all about. And I know where to place the two nostrils, I know where to place the two lip corners, I know where to place the eyes. And everything else is pretty much just falls right into place as long as I have this major anchor point. The first point of the face that you draw should be your main landmark. Out of that emerges everything else. So it's either the two eyes of the T or the bridge of the T, which is the nose bridge light. As long as you have one of these or both, or just, blah, 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 you've started with something. You have something. Now you're safe. You're okay. You're like, okay, I know where I am. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to draw one eye here and one eye all the way over here in this no man's land. I'm not going to draw the nostril, one nostril here and one nostril over there. You need this. You need something that helps you keep the symmetry intact. This is a consistent rule even into 3/4 view. When you have the T, you know at what stage the compression is happening of the 3/4 view. You know how far the nose is sticking out. And of course, I've made numerous videos of how to draw a nose in 3/4 view, how to draw a face in 3/4 view, how to draw eyes in 3/4 view, and lips in 3/4 view. So all of that is already ready for you. Just check in the video history and you'll find it there. But finding one of these really important parts of the face, the lips aren't that important. The lips just seem to hang off the face, in my opinion. The eyes are the most important, or the nose are the most important things, because it's either the eyes, which are the most beautiful part of the face, in my opinion, or the nose, which is the most sticky outy part of the face. The most protruding part of the face, which also helps me determine as a landmark where all the other features are. So the first part of the face, where does one start with the face? Find a spot that helps you find all the other spots. And I recommend finding the T-zone area, which are the two eyes and the nose, by just simple brush stroking and sculpting. Just like that. When I do this, I'm so inspired because I'm like, damn, I can do so much with this right now because I feel safe. Good job, Istebrak. Thank you for helping me find this. Now let me just do my thing. That's basically the schizophrenic drawing process in my mind. As long as I have these anchor points, I'm good to go. Next question, when planning out the face, I struggle with making every face unique. So yes, I did answer this question, but I will elaborate. So if there's any tips to making things have a bit more variety, it'd help. So again, the face, the only difference between... Let's go on Google for a sec and search up a face. Bob Dylan. Alright, let's look at Bob Dylan's face. The difference between Bob Dylan's face and Sting face is measurement. How these... Well, this is a drawing. Really good drawing. Okay. The difference between Bob Dylan's face and Sting's face is measurement. Look at the size of the nose, the width of the nose here and here. They do have pretty similar bone structure though. But the eyes, the slant of the eyes, his eyes are slanting down this way, while his eyes are slanting down in the opposite direction. Look at the lips and the distance between the lips and the mouth. I mean the nose and the lips. Look at the way the lip corners work, these dark spots here. His don't seem to have major fat in either corner of his lips, so the lip corner looks very different. The chin, which can be very similar actually, because the bone structure is very similar. The kind of eyebrows they have, the space in between the eyebrows. His eyebrows are very, very close to his head, and there isn't much of an arc or bone structure. He doesn't have much bone structure in his eyebrow area, but Sting's is massive. His cheekbones are much more chiseled in Sting. And so typically, you'd say that Sting is more handsome than Bob Dylan. No comparison of music here at all. Why? Because his face is extremely similar, and he's following the triangle of beauty. His eyes are much larger and cover a larger diameter than the lips do. But in Bob Dylan's, it seems to be pretty much an equal fight here in the nose and mouth area. He's much more handsome, but he's following the triangle of the face. Triangle. So the triangle of the face really is the major deliverer of beauty. The size of the eyes also should be larger than the lips. And the nose, however large it is here, because he is a masculine character, he's a man, so some of the rules are a bit broken. Okay, so that's it for the Q&A. The other questions I did answer, so they did seem a bit redundant. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope this video helped. Have a great day. Bye-bye.